Is this Marriage Story or is this more so white noise?
Jay Kelly is a hero of cinema.
Drive-by movies, you're watching
Fresh releases.
My name's Blaise.
And I'm James.
And this week we're talking Netflix original film, Jay Kelly.
That's a crazy thing. Everything you thought you were isn't true.
And cut.
Can we go again?
Really?
I'd like another one.
Noah Baumbach is back with his new Netflix movie, and it's about famous actor Jay Kelly, who embarks on a journey of self-discovery, confronting his past and present with his devoted manager, Ron. Poignant and humor-filled, pitched at the intersection of regrets and glories is where we find Jay Kelly, played by George Clooney. George Clooney, I haven't seen his face in quite some time. Like, he's always there. He's always doing movies and is always fantastic and everything. He's at that point of his career where he can just pick whatever he wants, and it's cool that he wanted to work with Noah Baumbach. I mean, I don't see who wouldn't want to work with Noah Baumbach, but, you know, is this Noah Baumbach at his best or Noah Baumbach at his kind of more peculiar, just because there is two very different sides of Noah Baumbach, I guess you could say. Like, is this Marriage Story or is this more so his last movie that nobody really liked? But I loved his last movie. Blaise, what are your thoughts coming out of Jay Kelly?
Wait, remind me what his last movie was. Was it Meyerowitz Stories?
It had also Greta Gerwig and Adam Driver, and it was like a post-apocalyptic. Well, not. It was the start of like an apocalypse.
Yeah. White Noise.
White Noise. Yes, I liked that movie. I know it wasn't everyone's favorite, but Jay Kelly is a lot more grounded, I guess you could say, compared to that.
Yeah, it feels like him. I wouldn't say it's a return to form in the sense, but it's him kind of returning back to like some of his previous movies where it's a little more grounded. It feels like he did make efforts to maybe do something more bombastic with White Noise, of course, but Jay Kelly feels like it's essentially him going back to his roots, trying to make something a little bit more along the lines of like an upper scale, like mumblecore movie, in a sense that, you know, fully is about the industry and how it works, and this aging actor Jay Kelly trying to connect with his daughters that are kind of like essentially estranged in a way. But yeah, I would say that this film originally had Brad Pitt in the leading role and not George Clooney, and they pivoted at one point. I think Adam Sandler was always attached to this movie, but they pivoted and went for George Clooney. And I feel like that's where, when I read that, I'm like, honestly, I would have preferred this more if Brad Pitt was in it. I think he could have lent a little bit something more interesting, where I feel like George Clooney's like the safe bet for a role like this. Like, we all know George Clooney, and it feels like at the same time, do we actually know George Clooney? Like, we know the actor, but it feels like he's this guy who, you know, everything he acts in, he's decent, you know, he's good, but who is George Clooney? You know, besides writing that open letter to make Biden stop running for president, who is George Clooney?
It's funny because you're reminding me of Nikki Glaser I saw at the Golden Globes. Was like, who is Leo DiCaprio? I made a joke about him dating young girls, but that's because that's all we know about you and stuff. Yeah. And you know, you and I, we've heard whispers in Hollywood. That's a nice rabbit hole for any watchers who are curious about Leo DiCaprio. There's rumors in Hollywood about why he's so secretive. But anyways, back to Jay Kelly though. He's got this like vibe of just like being mysterious overall in, you know, Hollywood's eye, but in this movie, you know, we're painted very clearly what kind of person he is and what is missing in his life. And at the end of the day, this story has been told so many times, has been done to death. I'm trying to I can't think of the right movie off the top of my head, but there's just been so many movies where I could just imagine the scene where just like a dad is just trying to rekindle with his daughter, and like he's just crying and just like at his lowest low, you know, despite having all this money still too. Like, you're allowed to be depressed with money and being rich, of course, but just like, you know, it's a movie that just like at the end of the day, like I can't relate to, nobody can relate to, and I feel bad, but this like goes for any kind of career option too. And like, you know, that might make it relatable, but just at the end of the day though, it's just like, we've seen this movie so many times before. Noah Baumbach is still great at getting these great performances. It's a very well written script, but overall this movie feels very below everyone, kind of, just because it's such a simple film, it feels like.
Yeah, especially it's definitely a simple movie, and you know that they had probably some massive budget to make this movie. There's multiple locations. I mean,
a lot of CGI
it feels like
too. Yeah, just like some of the locations like felt very CGI based. Yeah,
and it feels like this is the first time Noah Baumbach's really like gone out. You know, like he's usually, a lot of his films are kind of like Marriage Story, I feel like takes place in like a couple houses, you know, or it feels like this is like, oh, it's like his grand film in a way. He's like gonna go out and film in these locations in Europe, and there's scenes on a train, and it just feels like it was probably had a bigger budget than it even needed, because we weren't really breaking new ground in a way. Like you said, this is a film we've seen multiple times, whether it's, you know, about an actor, a director, or even just somebody in a, you know, totally different profession where they have to basically commit themselves to it, and their home life isn't necessarily the greatest, but they're trying to make strides into being a better person. There's some interesting scenes here. I really enjoyed the scene with Billy Crudup and Jay Kelly getting in a fist fight.
Yeah,
like I thought that was a cool scene, and them kind of being like starting at first like, oh, like we're gonna go out, and even Adam Sandler's like, are you sure this is okay? Like, you know, people are probably always approaching these A-listers that like, oh, remember we used to go to college or high school or acting school, and then they always have like some other intention. It's not just, oh, let's get a drink or let's reminisce old times. It's like, hey, I could have been you, or I could have you messed up my big break, you know, like. Yeah. So I there's some scenes I really liked. I really liked the scene on the train where it's like everyone's remembering like, oh, like I saw you in this movie or that. Like I liked a lot of those scenes, but when it comes to like the emotional gravity of like the scene with his daughter where he kind of confesses that he tracked her friend's credit card activity, it's just like some of that stuff I feel like didn't hit for me as well. I don't know, it just, this film, like you said, it's just not as relatable for like the common man.
At the end of the day, it's not a bad movie. Also, it is a good movie, but it's just not a movie that necessarily I'd recommend. And just, it feels lost in the shuffle when we've been talking about so many great movies. We're interviewing or reviewing this in between 28 years later, and you know, just a couple weeks ago we've been talking about some of our favorite movies of 2025 now that it just barely ended. And yeah, this movie came out kind of towards the end of 2025, but it's been out for a good amount of time now too. And just, this movie has the vibe of just being a big Oscar contender, and you know, we still don't have the nominations yet, but you know, if it does get nominations, it's just, I feel like at the end of the day, just kind of there to just like fill up some spaces that they were struggling filling out, because no one's bad in this movie. It's just nothing's really a standout with this movie whatsoever. It's a great script, and I actually did like a lot of the interesting editing choices of just going in between flashbacks and just some of the way that it was approaching some of these like ideas and thoughts that are going through George Clooney's heads during certain parts of moments. But just, yeah, it just is forgettable, but just like been there, done that kind of movie, surprisingly.
Yeah, definitely. I think that when it comes to Noah Baumbach, he was trying to make his return to form, but at the same time, it does feel very much like the way this came out on Christmas, that he was trying to get some awards bait kind of contender here, because we all know that like Hollywood does love those industry style movies. I mean, I'll be honest, I usually love any industry movie that's like a look behind the scenes, but this one just didn't connect with me at all.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, like, you know, everyone tried here, but just like, you know, Babylon's a very different movie, but that takes like a familiar story of just like, you know, the glamorization of Hollywood, trying to make it in the industry, starting from the bottom and just like working your way up. But that movie goes way more into weird, treacherous territories that I never would have expected. You know, that one was not critically acclaimed, but that was, I thought, a great movie. And I think to this day is like getting a bigger cult following too. And just this movie kind of, even though it's a very different story, it just has that old Hollywood tale that just Hollywood normally loves and give awards and nominations to, but just I just don't see that at the end of the day with this kind of movie.
Especially with last year being the year that it was, with how many banger movies came out. Looking at a lot of people's top 10s of last year, like it's the same, you know, 10 movies just reshuffled. Maybe you have 3 movies that's not on somebody else's top 10 list, but I will say that's because there was enough good movies to fill up a top 10. In some years, there's only like 4 or 5 good movies that fill everyone's top 10. Last year, the good films were just that good, and the other films are pretty much mediocre at best usually. So I feel like last year was a great year for movies, but at the same time, it's like, because there was 10 amazing movies that released essentially, and some years we don't even get that.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, Jay Kelly, add it to your list, forget about it. But, you know, I'd say it's a solid watch, but just it's not a movie I'm necessarily going to recommend. It's a movie that I thought was good, but at the end of the day, you know, not going to recommend it here, and it's not going to be a movie that I'm ever really going to remember or feel the need to revisit, which is unfortunate to say, but, you know, it's not like I had high hopes for this movie. So, you know, let us know if we're completely wrong or we full of crap. Let us know in the comments below. What did we miss out on? What did you see that was so like uplifting or just like resonated with you? A great way to help support the show. Let us know in the comments below after watching the movie.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And speaking of updates, you can catch all our social media links down below. We have links to Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, as well as our personal Letterboxd accounts. That'll be it for this week. Tune in next week for a brand new video.